Hello, my name is Rhett Bentley. I am the Director of Communications for Thrive Regional Partnership. This year, Thrive set out to tackle the question, how might we equip the tri-state 16-county region with robust, accessible, and affordable high-speed internet at home, school, and work? This challenge has been amplified big time by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has deepened the divide between internet-ready individuals, schools, and industries, and those that may be less prepared. Our Regional Broadband Alliance launches next month to begin thinking about opportunities, challenges, and projects collaboratively. It will address this challenge statement with the guiding principle that connectivity is essential infrastructure, as are our digital literacy and equity efforts. For this episode of Setting the Table, I've invited Deb Socia, President and CEO of the Enterprise Center, to join us to cover broadband basics. The Enterprise Center is an innovation hub in Chattanooga, Tennessee, that leverages the city's digital technology to create and test tech solutions that improve people's lives. Deb, thank you so much for joining us today.
Very happy to be here.
So Deb, tell me first off, what is broadband? How do we define this?
So it is a complex thing to define for a lot of reasons, but I'll give you what the broadband definition is that the FCC states, right? And it is based on the speed of your broadband connection. And so they call it 25 down, 3 up. And what that means is you get 25 megabits per second of data when you're downloading and 3 megabits per second in uploading. And so think about it as if you were downloading a movie. The higher the number, the number you have for your broadband, the faster the connection would be. So I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit about the different ways people access broadband, right? So we all know that, during the 90s, most of us had dial-up, right? There are still Americans with dial-up broadband.
Wow.
And that is really slow. And so when we're talking about that kind of connection, we're talking about 0.5 megabit per second, right? So that's really slow. And then there's satellite, which a lot of folks have if you're in a really rural community. Again, that's really low. And they self-report how fast it is, but it rarely actually matches your experience in your home. But satellite, they say from 1 to 25 down and 1 or 2 up. Right? So not really big numbers, but not horrible either. Unfortunately, the reality is very different than those numbers. And if you think about it, so in order to use satellite, when you're in your home, whatever you do has to go up to a satellite, bounce back down to the source of information, go back up to the satellite and come back to you. So that's what they call latency. How long does it take from that moment that you connect to the moment you receive the information back? So it has really poor latency, and it's also not really reliable in terms of weather issues or rotation of the earth. So all kinds of issues with satellite. And then the next one would be copper, which is using old telephone lines, which is, you hear people say DSL. Mm-hmm. So DSL, it's interesting because it depends how far away you are from the node where the signal is coming to. If you are the first person after that node, you probably get pretty good speeds. But if you're the next person or the person after, your speeds will go down. And the more people using the internet, the less good quality internet you're going to get. And so in this time of COVID, everybody's home, everybody's online, everybody's getting terrible service. And I have friends who have to get up at 3 in the morning to send an email, right? So the next kind is fiber. And that's what EPB provides in Chattanooga and within their energy footprint, right? And when we talk about the FCC definition of 25 down and 3 up, in my home here in Chattanooga, I get 1,000 down and 1,000 up. So that's what a gig is. It's 1,000 megabits per second. And so that has an incredibly low latency. It's really fast. It can use a lot of data. I'm going to download a movie in seconds compared to somebody, say, that has DSL. It's pretty future proof. And, you know, in the end is the sort of best solution, because it will, regardless of how many people add to that network, and regardless of how many of us are working from home, it's still going to be a robust choice.
Mm-hmm. So my next question may be a little bit more convoluted, because different people need internet and broadband for different things, right? So I guess, why is it important to have broadband, whether it's at 25/3 or a whole gig? Why is it important, considering, well, certainly considering COVID, but into the future, like, why do we need to be talking about these different types and speeds and things like that?
Sure. So I'll start with one that's important to me as an older American, right? I'm older than a lot of folks that are on the internet, but I want to age in place, right? I want to stay in my home. That means I need to be able to use telehealth services, right? Mm-hmm. Telehealth requires video, and you want instantaneous video. You don't want it spinning, right? You want to be able to have a conversation back and forth. That's really important to me. I think the idea of being able to order items online, the idea of ordering your groceries and having them delivered, those are all really powerful opportunities, especially in a more rural area. Online banking, so now I don't have to drive a half hour to get to the bank branch. I can literally do that from home, and I can save a lot of time, and I'm saving in terms of gasoline prices, and so it's all a really good savings. Additionally, education. So not just for children who are home during COVID, though that is incredibly important, but also for me educating myself. And one of the things, I was a teacher and a principal for a lot of years, and one of the things I love about having internet at home is the capacity to be spontaneous, right? I find a flower that's beautiful. I want to know what it is. I can figure that out. I see a snake and I want to know if it's poisonous. I can figure that out. Those opportunities to be spontaneous in your learning are really important. And of course, working from home. And the other one that I think we sometimes do not elevate to the same level, but I think is equally important, is communication with your family, and also just for recreation, right? I can watch a movie, I can, you know, Skype with my grandchildren. There are all kinds of ways that I find it enriches my life. So there are probably a million reasons, but those are the ones that rise to the top for me.
Absolutely. I know grocery delivery was an absolute savior when I was home on maternity leave and not ready to leave the house. Just being able to go online, order what I needed for the week was really essential. I was glad to be able to do that. And I do want to ask one more related question. When you were speaking about telehealth, we've compared to like general recreation, like downloading a movie or a playlist or something like that, telehealth requires that upload, right? Like, so the opposite direction. So sometimes we'll hear our partners at the Enterprise Center talk about like symmetrical speed. Like, so tell me a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. And so, symmetrical, when people say symmetrical, what they mean is the download speed is the same as the upload speed. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of plans from service providers have a much higher download speed than upload speed. And for things like telehealth, or even for education that's online, you have got to have the symmetrical broadband in order for that to work well. You have to have a higher upload speed. Initially when we started using the internet a long time ago, quite honestly, those upload speeds were not as important because we were mostly consuming, right? But now we're also creators. And so as we become more creators of information, of videos, of shared educational opportunities, we need to have both. So yeah, download and upload the same. That when you have them both the same, it is symmetrical.
So tell me, I mean, certainly broadband has become just a critical, like, it's just infrastructure at this point. We really all need it to be able to educate ourselves, entertain ourselves, work remotely. But from your perspective, your role at the Enterprise Center, what are the sort of top 3 to 5 challenges that have prevented people from having access to the internet they need to, like, find a job or work or educate their families?
Yeah, it's pretty challenging. And there are a couple of things that I think are specifically problematic. So, you know, what EPB has done in its footprint has been amazing. They could go beyond their footprint, might like to go beyond their footprint, but there's actually a state law that prevents them from doing so. There are state laws that either prohibit or create a barrier to building your own broadband locally in 19 states. That is really problematic. And so the question, you might wonder, why do we have these laws if they are actually making it harder for people to get broadband to their homes? The vast majority of them were created and socialized by the current providers. In other words, they don't want competition. So that's one issue. The second one is really about how the FCC judges, where that's the Federal Communications, right? How do they judge what areas have broadband? That is another challenge. And so here's what happens. If I am a broadband provider and in your census tract, I can give internet to one home, I can count that whole census tract as covered, and they will not be eligible for additional funds from the federal government. And it's self-reported. So it's vastly over-reported, the access to the internet in our country. One of the interesting things is that, you know, when you think about the issues in rural America, they almost seem overwhelming until you look at a state like North Dakota, where 80% of the people in North Dakota have fiber. That's the highest symmetrical option to their home of any state. So 75% of the people, 80% of the people, 75% of the landmass is covered by fiber to the home. And your question was going to be how? Mm-hmm. It's done by cooperatives, right? So it's how we built out a lot of the electricity in our country, right? Was through co-ops. In North Dakota, co-ops managed a good part of the state, and so they've been able to build out all throughout their footprints, right? Yeah. And that, you know, for a while, Tennessee's law even prohibited co-ops from participating. They now can participate. But I've talked to folks in Tennessee who have not been able to build out because they do not have a local utility, or they do not have a co-op that's interested. So we do need to find those solutions. It is never cheap to solve this problem, but it is not impossible, and we need to keep working at it till we figure it out. We figured it out for water. We figured it out for electricity. We can figure this out. It's a doable thing.
So, being familiar with Thrive's mission statement, which is to inspire responsible growth through conversation, connection, and collaboration, and we operate across 16 counties and 3 state lines. Tell me what advantages you see to addressing this question at a footprint of that scale, collaboratively. What are the benefits there?
I'll tell you a bit of a story. So there is a group of communities in Minnesota who, not unlike this area, did not have sufficient broadband for their needs. And they all got together and they figured out what it was going to cost, and they took loans. Those loans were backstopped with taxes, which means if we don't pay the loan back, I'm going to have to increase my taxes. But they recognized that the cost of their homes was decreasing, that their kids weren't coming home from college, that their children were not getting adequate education in the public schools because they didn't have internet at home. They recognized the value. So they worked together. Not every community joined the effort, but all the communities that did are getting broadband, high-speed broadband to their homes. And the communities that didn't join initially are now begging to get in on it because they can sell their houses. And fiber to the home can increase your home price up to 5%. That's huge, right? They are able to telecommute, all the things that we know really matter. And what's really interesting is one of those small towns actually now has a medical school, right?
Really?
That's not the typical you hear for rural America, right? But we can do this. But it does take the cooperation and the collaborative work of a group of people and leaders for the elected leaders for the communities to come together and say, this is not okay. And what can we do together to solve this problem? And so, that's a great story. And those are folks who'll hop on the call with you and walk you through how they did it. Because there certainly is some politics involved. You got to figure out how everybody can participate. And they made a commitment to go to every single home in their footprint. And so it's been a pretty powerful opportunity to make change in a rural community.
Absolutely. That's a really inspiring story, and hopefully we can see some amazing outcomes like that, looking at it at this challenge from a broad geographic scale, and also, the interdisciplinary aspect of like having healthcare at the table, education, economic development, all the reasons, each in their own way need this internet, but might have a different way of going about it, or a reason. So
I was going to say, I think sometimes people feel like it's too overwhelming a task to solve. It isn't. You just got to take it one step at a time, right? One step at a time. It's like everything else, right? We built schools, we built roads, we built sewer systems, we built water systems. This is just another utility that we can build together that will result in a better quality of life for everybody.
Absolutely. So before we hop off, I want to talk a little bit more about the Enterprise Center. Are there any programs that y'all are working on right now that are particularly exciting, or tell me a little bit about what y'all are up to?
It's always here. So, well, we run the Tech Goes Home program, which provides technology and training and help to sign up for internet to families and adults in the Hamilton County region. And what's really interesting about it is, of course, we've had to take it online, right? And so how do we do online support? Well, we need folks to have the device in their hands. We need them to have internet access. So we're giving folks their Chromebooks and a 4G hotspot, which uses cellular signal. And depending where you are, whether or not you get a good cellular signal, they're helpful, right? So that's been really interesting. We're doing Tech Goes Home for teachers and providing them with resources that help them do a better job of teaching online, right? So thinking about that. And we're also working on some telehealth projects, particularly for folks who are receiving palliative care or hospice care. So you're not having to get in your car to get that service, but you can do it online, right? It's just so many ways in which technology really impacts lives. So we're enjoying trying to figure out how to change our model. At the same time, we hope that at some point we can go back to our old model.
Absolutely. I know we're looking forward to the day when we can all, get back together in a real face-to-face meeting.
It's been hard. The other thing I'd say is, we run floor 5 in the EDME building, which is an event space. And it's open to anybody in the community that needs a space to meet. of course, we had to change that model as well. So, but if you have a team meeting of 10 or less people, we can accommodate it here, floor 5 at the Edney, because we have a big enough space that we could spread out tables and chairs so they're more than 6 feet apart. So that's also available if folks are interested, and they can find that at theedney.org.
Absolutely. We've hosted 1 or 2 meetings at floor 5, and it's a really great space. So definitely check that out if you're in need of some meeting space. If you have any questions about Thrive Regional Partnership or the Regional Broadband Alliance, don't hesitate to reach out to me at rbentley@thriveregionalpartnership.org. Deb, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. It has been a pleasure talking to you. This has been so informative for me personally, and I know to several of our stakeholders as well. I so appreciate you and our partnership with the Enterprise Center.
It's been great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.